Is this the ultimate basketball lens? Let's find out. So in this box is potentially the best basketball lens that I've ever shot with. As most of you know, I shoot a lot of football, but I don't shoot a lot of basketball. I have shot basketball in the past when I worked at Fresno State, but it's kind of one of my next goals is to shoot more basketball in my future. So some of my NFL colleagues also shoot for NBA or NBA Entertainment, which is like the NFL films of the NBA. Every time I chat with them, they keep bringing up this lens.
Wow!
This lens seems to cover basketball really, really well when you're under the baseline, when you're under the hoop on the baseline. So here we have the Canon 11-165mm T2.5 Super 16 zoom lens that must have been made in the late 80s or early 90s, maybe before that. This pairs well with the other Canon zoom, the wider zoom, which is the 8mm to 64mm T2.4. These two lenses, if you had them both, you could shoot any documentary you wanted. Truly, truly an amazing piece of glass and a really, really great zoom lens, even after all these years. But remember, we're talking about Super 16. So there is a field of view or a Super 35 equivalent to these. And the easy way to do that is to just multiply it by 2. Meaning if I zoomed all the way into 165, put it on my camera, put it in Super 16 mode, it would be the same as if I put a 330mm Super 35 lens in Super 35 mode. I would see the same distance. This, of course, just has to be shot in Super 16 mode. If you don't shoot in Super 16 mode, you're going to have one heck of a vignette because this is literally just covering a Super 16 sensor in the middle of a 4.6K sensor. You would never want to shoot this lens in Super 35 mode because it would just be a whole bunch of black and a little circle in the middle of your frame. So you put your camera into Super 16 mode so it crops in on the sensor, and this lens will fill that image circle appropriately. One of the best ways to see this lens in action is going on YouTube and just searching NBA Phantom Cam. And all it is just NBA highlights in super slow motion using an actual Phantom branded camera with probably a 11-165 on the end of it. And I want to say they're shooting maybe 200 frames, maybe 120 frames. Will Taylor, Dan Friedman, Steve Andrich, Donald Marks, Austin Porter, Evan Shaw, Daniel Murphy, to name a few. These are all the guys that I shoot football with, but they also shoot NBA games. And so I was trying to think, well, what if I created my own Phantom Cam with my Alexa 35 and the 11-165? Again, I've never shot with this lens before, but having the ability to shoot some Fresno State basketball games with it, I was having a blast. But traditionally, when you shoot a Super 16 lens, it's going to be a little bit more forgiving on the focus when you're trying to follow a basketball or a player because you're dealing with a smaller sensor. The bigger the sensor, the harder it is to follow and track things flying through the air. When you're on the baseline of a basketball game, the amount of times you get blocked is a lot. And the refs, of course, are doing their job and they're running around, but sometimes you get blocked for a slam dunk or a shot by a ref. My thought was like, get on the baseline so if I pan to the left, at least I could see a 3-point shot from the baseline opposite me. And of course, I could get a shot of a corner 3-pointer in front of me, and I can see the hoop the whole way. And so it's just trying to find those great spots on the baseline that are available that aren't being used by someone else, and trying to limit the amount of blockage that will happen in front of your camera. Shout out to Alan Gordon for renting vintage lenses to people like me. Yeah, Alan Gordon is a great place to rent from because they have lenses like this. I also like lensrentals.com just for the ease of use. Back when I shot film for NFL Films, we had a lens called a 5.5 millimeter. So we called it a 5.5, which would be an equivalent to an 11 millimeter Super 35 lens. I don't have a 5.5, but that lens was super fun, and I still believe the NBA still uses a 5.5 for their pre and post game shots. As far as not having a wide angle lens for pre-game stuff, I brought my 11-165 do close and shot in Super 35 mode, and then when the game started, switching to Super 16 mode and using this 11-165. So one thing you'll notice when you watch the 11-165 footage, because we're cropping in on the sensor, you're going to see a lot more noise present. The noise is there, and it's going to happen anytime you take a sensor and you crop in on it. The one thing that I really wish I could have is the Alexa 35 enhanced sensitivity mode. Whenever you're shooting in ES mode, especially at 2560, all the grain and noise goes away, or at least a lot of it. Enhanced sensitivity mode is not available at 120 frames per second. I believe it's available in Super 16 mode, just only up until 60 frames per second. Shooting basketball at 120 frames inside of an arena without having enhanced sensitivity mode, I was pushing this at an ISO of 2000 for the whole game, and I was shooting the lens at a 5.6 to help with some of my focusing, again, because I've never used this lens before, so I'm not familiar with its characteristics. It kind of gives you that vintage, not really film grain, but, you know, it kind of gives a certain quality or a certain look that I kind of dig with the older glass. So you're able to get tight action, but you're also able to pop out wide, and so that range is unmatched. The only thing comparable to this would be the Duvo 24-300, still not wide enough and still not long enough to represent what this thing is. And there's some ramping that happens in a Duvo. Of course, the Duvo covers Super 35 and also full frame with the expander, but the resolution is going to be there, the quality is going to be there, but this kind of has some vintage characteristics that I really, really like. And again, the zoom range is unmatched for covering basketball. Being only a 4-pound lens, it's, dare I say, the perfect basketball lens. And man, it's fun. That's the 11-165. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to see more content like this, just let me know in the comments. And if you have any questions, also leave them in the comments. I'm pretty good about answering everybody. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.